The House Committee on Election Integrity will come to order. Will the clerk please take the attendance?
Chair Smith.
Present.
Representatives Fox.
Yep.
Outman. Alexander.
Here.
Hoadley.
Here.
Pavlo.
Here.
Wooden.
Here.
Holzar.
Here.
Song. Madam Chair, you do have a quorum.
Rep. Fox moves to adopt the minutes from the March 18th. There being no objection, the motion prevails by unanimous consent. Representative Wooden moves to excuse absent members. There being no objection, the motion prevails by unanimous consent. Today, the committee will be hearing testimony from Mr. Ramon Jackson and Pastor Lorenzo Sewell, who will be each speaking to concerns relating to the management of elections here in Michigan. Welcome, Mr. Jackson and Pastor Sewell. Please come forward to the testimony table and begin when you are ready. There's a mic button, thank you.
We are Holy Ghost happy and humbled. Representative Smith, thank you so much for caring for our democracy. I want to say thank you to the advocate Ramon Jackson. Thank you to the great members of 180 Church and those that love our democracy. We're here because there is a disease in our democracy. We're here because Dr. Martin Luther King said, "Who knows the longings and the aspirations of the people more than the preacher?" That the preacher should be like a type of Amos, that when the Lord speaks, who can but prophesy? Again, like Amos, that righteousness needs to roll like water, and justice like a mighty stream. That's why we've traveled from Detroit today. Detroit is the largest voting block in the state of Michigan, and it has been poisoned. And today we have the proof. It's the people who are the proof. Today we want to proclaim to our great state and our great nation that we can make America what it ought to be. That today what we're saying is that we have an opportunity to take the largest voting block in the state of Michigan, and we can make it pure again. We can make it great again. Just like Detroit has moved the world through music with Motown, just like Detroit has moved the world through the automotive industry, so it is Detroit is about to move the world with fair elections. Because if we don't have fair elections, we do not have a democracy. If we don't have fair elections, we're like China. We have literally become what we hate if we don't have fair elections. So today, I represent a group of people that have been disenfranchised, that have been marginalized, and that have been pushed aside. I represent not only the 16 majority black cities in Michigan, we represent over 1,000 black cities in America. 57 congressional districts that represent the highest crime, highest poverty, highest foreclosure, human trafficking. Why is this? Because people misrepresent us because they were never voted in by us. That's why we're here today. We have ironclad, bear trap, hand in the cookie jar proof. We have a proprietary system to detect and determine cheating in every election. And with that, I want to hand it over to the greatest political mind that has ever crossed the bridge of time. I want to hand it over to the man who is my political mentor and our political minister at the church, 180 Church, who we met when President Trump came. He's become a friend, a mentor, and one who is going to present to you the evidence. Thank you so much.
My name, how y'all doing? Thank y'all for having us here. My name is Ramon Jackson. I'm an advocate in Detroit. I advocate for the resources to be redistributed back to our community so that we can have adequately ran communities. What I found out is that these resources was not getting getting to our communities because our elections was being stolen. The way I found out what was happening in Detroit is that me and some people here with us today, we was doing a recall on a corrupt city council member in Detroit. We went and got the list of people who voted in the gubernatorial election in 2022. When I got that list, I scrolled the list and I seen my friend on the list who I know had moved out of Detroit, who I know don't vote. I got on the phone with him. I have an affidavit from him in here. They used him in 4 elections. I see him on the list of voting absentee in the gubernatorial 22 election. I get on the phone with him and call him. I know he moved from Detroit. He had lived in Detroit 47 years. He have never been registered to vote. He ain't never voted in his life. Soon as he moved from Detroit, they registered him back to Detroit to his old address without his knowledge, and they started put him on a permanent absentee ballot list and started casting ballots in his name in elections. So once I confirmed that he didn't vote, I knew he was gone. I knew that we had a pattern. So I go back to my history, pull up my history, because I remember I moved from Detroit to Southgate to Toledo. Sure enough, pull my history, I find out when I changed my license over to Ohio, I became registered to vote back into Detroit without my knowledge. So now I'm saying this is a pattern that's going on here. I go to the clerk's office, talk to my clerk to try to get an understanding of it. I pulls my voter history and my voter registration. I confirm that everything is valid. What I find out is I sue them. I take it action a step further. Right now we in the 6th Circuit Court of Appeals. Our case number is 24-2006. Right now that case is pending, so we just not talking evidence. We put that before the court what we had. I discovered from the courts by suing the Secretary of State and Janice Winfrey, our clerk, that we was being fraudulently registered through what they call a driver's license transaction. Now, we wasn't present at these driver's license transactions that they're saying that we are being registered because we are out of state in a whole nother state with a whole nother license. I have multiple people. This the Attorney General's response last week. Mingus is the Assistant Attorney General representing the case, Heather Mingus. Every individual, they say we became registered to vote under driver's license transactions. We can't become registered to vote. We have to register to vote, and we have to participate or not register to vote. The thing is, we're not at these transactions. So what we discovered is that they're preying on people with a low or no voter history who transitioning, moving from place to place in Detroit, unstable housing, and then when they move out of Detroit, we are being registered back to Detroit unlawfully without our knowledge, and they saying this is being done through a driver's license transaction. I have I sent the packet to everybody here, and I don't know if y'all had a packet with okay. So if you go through that packet right there, you will see, first you will have my history, my voting history, where I was registered at. It would be in that packet. It would be my voter history. Then it would be an absentee ballot history of me, where I allegedly voted. Then you will see a documentation would show an absentee ballot application. I have never ever, there's 2 dates. Is 11/3/2020 and it's 2/18/2017. I have never in my life filled out an absentee ballot application. I have never in my life seen one or anything. These are fraudulent entries on me with absentee ballots done by our clerk's office. If you go to the next document, I have a affidavit from John F. Kennedy in here, where he was fraudulently registered after he moved away out of Detroit, never been registered, never voted, and they voted for him in 3 elections since he's been gone. Right now, he still lives out of Detroit at the same address he moved out of Detroit in 2018, and they registered him back to his Detroit address. He's still at his address that he moved out of Detroit to. He don't know nothing about voting in 2020 and in 2022. So he voted absentee in the 2020 election without his knowledge. They come back and use him again in the August 2022 primary, come back again, use him again in the November 22 primary. So when I say the governor is recipients of these votes, Governor Whitmer, when I say Secretary Benson is recipient of these votes, when I say Dana Nessel is recipients of these votes, and Jocelyn Benson, how do I conclude that? Because they were straight ticket Democrat. That's how he voted. And all those people was in that election. That's how I know. And they are the winners of the election. The loser is not going to get the fraudulent votes. That's how I know that Kennedy was a fraudulent vote for all those actors present. If you go to his registration, you will see 10/9/2020 on Kennedy's registration. 10/9/2020, you do the history, this was a massive voter registration day. It was thousands of people allegedly registered to vote on this day. I'm talking about tens of thousands on 10/9/2020. Now, I can't speak for all the thousands, but I know this one right here, Kennedy didn't register to vote, and he didn't vote. So this is how I know that they're doing this through the driver's license transactions, and this is how I know they play. You go to the next affidavit, you will see an affidavit from Melissa Love. Same with Melissa Love. She didn't vote in the 2020 election. They used her. Melissa Love haven't voted in years. That's why they preyed on her. She moves around, so she fits the pattern. Unstable or constant transition or moving out of the state. This is the class of people that's being targeted. Literally, they are using the non-voters, which is the largest pool. The non-voters are being used against the people who actually vote, which makes their list far more bigger. We're not speculating that they're doing this. They are 100% using people who don't vote and registering them back to Detroit. I want to say this before I go on. A lot of people say to me, it's lawful to register you to vote when you go to a driver's license transaction. I understand that. I'm not disputing with that law, that lawful law that when you go to the license bureau, they can register you to vote through your license. What we're saying here is that we are not at the driver's license transactions that they are alleging that they registered it. And they can't tell me right now when I'm telling them I wasn't there. I couldn't register at a transaction that I'm not a part of. I was out of state with a different license at the time that they saying I registered. If I went and had a driver's license transaction with the state of Michigan, I either should have had a new license issued to me, I should have had a title issued to me, something tangible to show that I was there. All through the courts, they haven't produced one exhibit. This case been pending for a whole year. The Secretary of State won't turn over one exhibit to say he was here, this is where he came, because the driver's license transactions is fraudulent. I want to say this. Last week, I seen the hearing where the brothers came forward and they produced all type of glaring examples that something is terribly wrong with this election. I seen them come here last Tuesday, how all these registrations is spiking. What we here to tell y'all is that all the doubt and the speculation is cleared up. The Secretary of State is fraudulently registering people. How do I know this? They told me they doing it. Only people that can do a driver's license transaction are the Secretary of State. It's the only people deal with driver's license. I don't go to nobody to deal with no driver's license. You can't go to nobody. So when they tell us that they doing it either through a driver's license transaction or a driver's license import, we know that to be the Secretary of State. This is Melissa Love's history. This is her voter history. So once we get the list from the clerk, we go a step further. We do check my vote first. Then we send the person actually to the clerk's office and get their voter history, so it's no doubt that it's true. The clerk provided to her. The clerk told them the same thing that was on Check My Vote, that they used her in election. And as you see, she got one absentee ballot one absentee ballot vote off her history right here. She ain't never voted before 2020, and you're gonna see that present on this list. She never voted before 2020, showed up voting in the year 2020. Right here, this is affidavit from Sister Teresa Williams. She's present here now. In 2021, they took her in-person vote and flipped her in-person vote to an absentee vote. You see, run her history, you will see she got no absentee voting to 1 year. And I see that that's been a pattern. This next individual fit the same pattern. His name is Ishon Hill. Ishon Hill moved out of Detroit in 2006. 2014, they registered him back to Detroit. He moved to Monroe, Michigan. If you see, he got 3 registrations at the same time. He registered to vote in Wayne County, Monroe County, and Lucas County at the same time. I talked to the Monroe County clerk, and I talked to the Lucas County clerk, as well as the Wayne County clerk. Ishon Hill became registered to vote in Lucas County May of 2020. But he's been voting absentee in Detroit since August 2020, while he's registered to vote in Ohio. Moved away, never ever came back. So Ishon Hill fit the same pattern. When I sued them and put him in there, they said the same thing about him. He moved away, changed his license, and then he became registered to vote through a driver's license transaction. They don't say he registered to vote. They say he became registered to vote through a driver's license transaction. They got Ishon Hill's history as, they got his residential address as Patton Street. This is where they using him to vote at, but as you see, his mailing address is Toledo, Ohio. He lives in Toledo, Ohio, don't know nothing about Patton Street, ain't been in Patton Street in years. When he left, he had a low voter history, the same as me, the same as Kennedy, and the same as the other individuals, and was registered back to Detroit after he left here. And then they using him and casting fraudulent absentee votes in him in various different elections. The same with the next guy, his name is Martell Simpson. Martell Simpson stayed on Wickham Street. Wickham Street is 2 streets over from where I've been living for 50 years. I pretty much know everybody in this neighborhood. This house that he's registered to was owned by the Poles, that the family called the Poles. Martell Simpson moved from Detroit to Harper Woods in 2019, the same with me, the same with Kennedy. Martell Simpson shows up back registered to vote in Detroit 2021 at Wickham Street. Wickham Street sold in 2024 to Tina and Brian Woodward out of Alabama. They don't know, they not registered to vote, and they don't vote. They own that house, been owning that house since January of 2024. They don't vote and not registered to vote. Martell is the only one registered to vote. They don't know Martell. Martell showed up voting in November of this year at their house. You can go talk to them right now and they'll say, we don't know nothing about Martell. They bought the house. Martell had voted years before they bought the house. The house go up for sale. They buy the house. They from Alabama. They come in. Martell still registered and still voting in the house, and they living there, and they don't know who Martell is. This is what's going on. This the Woodward's address. Is you see Birmingham, Alabama, and you can see they showed up in Detroit in 2022, purchased their house in our neighborhood. Martell is voting here. They don't know nothing about Martell. They using him in various different elections as well. This is a copy of their property history from Tina and Brian Woodward, where they purchased the house, where they the true live owners of 9277 Wickham Street. This right here is an affidavit from Joanne Warwick of Detroit. She also a friend of mine. She's been owning her home for 10 years. She done had a registered voters, 3 registered voters that she don't know at her home. They've been registered to vote at her home 10 years prior to her owning home. So they've been registered 20 years. She have no idea who these people is. To add insult to the injury, one of these individuals became registered to vote at her house in 2000. They died in 99, so they became registered to vote 1 year after their house, which is 2000. Now we in 2024. She purchased the house in 2012. They was registered in, and they still registered there now. She have no clue who these people is. You see the documents that show this individual's been deceased since February 1999, but he's going to show up registered to vote at her house in 2000. I got a document. This from Charles Miles. Miles is here with us now. Miles they've been owning their house for 60 years. Nobody have lived at their home but the Miles residents all since they owned their home. They got 2 individuals that's been registered to vote that the Miles don't know nothing about these individuals. One of the individuals, a Lillian Jabaway, they used her in election and voted from her at the Miles residence. The Miles done went to our city clerk and said, we don't know these people. We've been owning this house since 1959. There's no way that they moved into this house. This is a documentation of the ownership of that house. When we presented this, they acted like this document wasn't valid, and you can go to the property county lookup sheet and get these documents and see who the actual owner of these houses is. This is Lillian Jabaway's voter status. As you see, they say she was registered there in 1950, but they say her voter status is challenged, but we don't know what's going on. The fact of the matter is the Miles don't know these voters. People have voters registered to their homes in Detroit that they don't have no clue who these people is. They being registered, and this is how the voter list is being inflated with fraudulent voters. This is how the registrations is being inflated. People are actually being registered unlawfully back to Detroit when they leave Detroit or when they move to a different city or a different state. Everybody know Detroit has been bleeding population for years, and everybody know we got unstable people that move constantly around Detroit 20 times in 20 years. These are the people that they are preying on. People unstable, got a low to no voter history, and then they grab them, register them back, and they don't have a clue. Now, before I go into this, Eric, they spoke about Eric last week. Eric plays a part into this whole elaborate scheme. Eric is a change in data with our Secretary of State doing what you call profiles on people once they move. If you look up Eric mission statement, Eric will tell you that we do this. When you move, we do profile on the person to see whether or not these people vote or not. What's their voter history? This is where the cheat sheet is coming from. Once Eric do a profile on the person who moved away, then and say this person ain't voted or they got a low history or never ever voted, that makes that person a prime candidate to be re-registered back to Detroit and then put on the rolls. Most of the people that I catch them doing this with, if I don't talk to them, they would never ever have a clue that this is going on, or they wouldn't even care that they doing this to them. Even when you tell them they're using you to cheat in election. And these are the individuals that they preying on. It's a class of individual. Everybody in Detroit this is not being done to. If you live in Detroit and you've been stable living in your house for years, even if you don't vote, they wouldn't mess with you. The pattern is low to no voter history, transitioning, constantly moving, or low, no voter history, moving to a different state. Let me say this to y'all. If y'all really serious about stopping cheating, Detroit is the epic center. We have the 2024 list of everybody who they said voted in Detroit. We have the list from the clerk, which Pastor Sewell purchased the list. They gave us 195,000 people when they said 240-some thousand people voted. That don't prove cheating. It's suspicious of cheating, but it got to go a little further. We got the list also from the state, which 241,000 people on there. We can take that list, it's in our possession, and find all the fraud we need to stop the cheating going on. Detroit is carrying the Democrat candidates all the way, based on that being the largest voting bloc in the state. Mike Rogers lost 20,000 votes. Detroit gave Slockins 204,000 votes, 10 times what Mike Rogers lost. And most people in Detroit don't know who Slockins is. And if you pull that list, every 10 minutes you can catch a fraudulent vote. If y'all really serious about stopping cheating going on, we can stop it with the major epic center of where it's going on at. I'm gonna say this. They don't want to work on Detroit. If Detroit was like 2,000 voters and we produced all this evidence, these documents, these affidavits of live people cheating, they'd come in. But to stop what's happening in Detroit, it would cripple the Democratic Party. It would cripple them because that's their stronghold right there. They got an automatic, the president getting an automatic 250,000 votes every time, the Democrat president. The governor, whoever the Democrat governor is, getting an automatic 160, 170,000 votes. And everybody running for the state offices, the governorships over the colleges, from the attorney general, all of them getting this same voting block. So anybody running for office that's running against them, you automatically behind. Slockins didn't have to come and do one thing in Detroit. She automatically had the biggest voting block in the state. So if we really want to address cheating, we got all the evidence, we got proof. We got people who didn't vote, where they registering us to vote, and guess what? Y'all can send any type of donations or money to 180 Church, and we'll find however many y'all need to get this done. Because some people say we need more people to get it done. I say we got people. They say give us more. However many y'all need, we can find. That's how secure we is knowing what they doing. However many y'all need to find to get this done, we can find them with that list. It's about how serious y'all gonna be. Last thing is this. This was this is a list of, in the 2024 primary election in Detroit. These was absentee voters. We obtained a list of people that they had sent ballots to, that the ballots returned but still voted. So that raised our suspicions. So what we did was we obtained this list, and what we found out is that it was no way people was voting absentee because they never sent ballots or applications to the overseas address for them to return it. They actually listed that they sent the actual ballots to the Detroit addresses versus the overseas address, but a ballot was still cast and they not. It's no way they cast a ballot for a person in Germany when they sent the ballot to the west side on 7 Mile. There's no way that person voted from Germany. And it's right here, you can see Mary Elaine Beckman. She was voting out of a house that was full of immigrants. They couldn't even speak no English when we went to the house. No lie. They couldn't even talk to us in English. They was all living in this house. They didn't know no Mary Elaine Beckman. Now, we do understand that you do not have to live at that residence when you move overseas. The current residents do not have to know you. We understand all that. But the law also say that must be your last address when you moved overseas. That wasn't her last address, and you must get the ballot sent to you overseas. There's no way you can vote when the ballot came to you in Detroit. The last case, well, this ain't the last one. This is, we call this a voter trap house. This 6830 Minnock Street. We call this a voter trap house. Voter trap house in urban term means a house where they deal in illicit votes, where they registering people here to vote. As you see, this is a picture of this house that's listed by Keller Wheelers for sale. It's listed for sale, but they got probably about 13 people registered to vote at this house listed for sale that's empty. The house sale, and I sue and put these people in a lawsuit before this house go listed for sale. How do the house become empty after I sue with these people? The house become empty, list for sale, and then the people that I put in the lawsuit still show up voting at that house. 6830 Minnock. This the last one. This lady right here is named Valley Smith. Her daughter name is Steely Smith. She got the same pattern as me, Kennedy, and everybody. Steely moved out of Detroit in 2012 to Texas. Valley reached out to me when she seen the work that I was doing. She said, I got a daughter. As you see from the thing, if you read this, I attached it, the communication between her. She said, my daughter, I keep getting information from my daughter. She never lived here in Detroit. She moved 10 years ago. And I say, what's your daughter's name? I punches up her daughter, find out Same thing with me. Her daughter moved to Texas. They registered her daughter back to Detroit, put her on a verified surrender, because that's the status that your voter status go to when they find out you moved out of state. The Secretary of State moved you to what you call a verified surrender. That means you verified your current Michigan license and you surrendered them for an out-of-state license. Every time they say we move to verified surrender, they say our status changed back through an absentee ballot application that we ain't present for. You look up Steely Smith, before 2020, Steely Smith never ever voted in her life. And she shows up voting in the 2020 election at a house in Detroit that her mother lived at, that her mother say she ain't never lived at. Say Valley never lived there. Valley is out of town in Texas. I sue them. The state of Michigan tells me that Valley is in Texas. Valley has an out-of-state license. And they did surrender her license, but she allegedly got it transferred back. Her status got transferred back based on an absentee ballot application. So, last but not least, this another one of individuals from Detroit, same pattern. Switched his in-person vote to an absentee vote. Affidavit from him, I ain't never ever voted absentee. Same election. Now, why is they switching in-person votes to absentee votes? They know we looking for dead voters. They now know we looking for voters who moved away. They know we own them now, voters who moved away in low propensity. So now the new game is we're going to use voters who actually voting. Come in person and we switch your vote to an absentee vote. That way we can create a whole new ballot in your name and say whatever it is we want that ballot to say. We can get whatever millage passed that we want to get that millage passed. That's why you got a whole city that's saying we ain't never voted on all these millages, and all these millages is constantly passing. So thank you all again for letting us present this to yours, but more importantly, something needs to be done. Like, because it's other than that, it's a charade. How much evidence is needed to make a move? How much Jocelyn Benson has to do? How much Janice Winfrey has to do for anybody to do something to her? If I'm lying about this, why don't y'all arrest me? I'm being serious. If I'm lying and I'm making all this up and I ain't just started this, why not arrest me? Bring me forward and say I'm perjuring myself, putting affidavits in saying they did this. I'm coming before committees testifying. Arrest me. And maybe if I get arrested and get a criminal charge, we can get all these people subpoenaed, because every board refusing to subpoena these people. All you got to do is bring them forward and they say, I didn't vote. They got me voting. I didn't vote. So we got affidavits of people, including myself, where they registering us when we moved away, filling out absentee ballots in our applications in our name, filling out absentee ballots in our name, casting votes in our name, and we presenting this before all you all. If y'all saying that it's not enough, we can go get more, however many y'all need in order to say, yeah, they wrong. But let me say this. When you testing for poison, you take a sample and you test the sample. The sample come back poison. You do not take a position that the rest of that lake ain't poison. You test the sample come back poison. We tested a sample, only a sample. These lists we got 240-some thousand people on the Detroit list of people that's voted, not registered. I'm talking about people who they said voted in that election, 240,000. We tested a sample out of 240,000, and we found poison in there. And now they telling us, that don't mean the rest of the lake ain't poison. That lake is unsafe. We found poison and we tested it. And to go further, we'll go back into the lake and we'll find a little bit more poison for y'all, if that's gonna clear it up. But we need something done here. I'm running for city council in August and November. We cannot adequately run a fair race if they cheating. And we know they cheating. We ain't speculating that they cheating. We ain't got I don't know nothing about data. I don't know nothing about computers. or nothing. I don't do this off no computers. I'm not reading off no data. We go get the list. We can push the list up, take the list directly given to us from the clerk, and we verify that list through the people, because the people is the evidence. When a person say I was gone, I can show you that I moved away. The date that they saying I did this, guess what? I got licensed out of state on that day. So they can't say I was at Michigan doing anything. That's why they can't win with a fair panel in the Sixth Circuit, because I got proof. I was out of state. My license history gonna show I was out of state. How did I come and do a transaction with you with my driver's license when I had another state license on this day, and then nothing changed with my driver's license status based on this transaction? So the proof is here. We hoping that y'all take this. These people come here from Detroit. They all want fair elections. You have Democrats, Republicans, Christians, Muslims, everything here. This lady right here is my sister. She been losing as a city council member by 40 votes. 40 votes. And we looking around and we saying, who keep voting for these people? How our community keep trying to install a city council member in, and then they keep just coming through, putting these people in. One of them get indicted for corruption, that they cheat with her. They bring another one in. He beat her out. All by 40 votes. We scratching our head like, what is really going on? First, we blaming our community because we thinking that they stupid. Like, seriously. I thought my community was stupid till I found out they was cheating in the elections. I blamed them. I was mad at them. I was upset with them. I blamed them. I say, oh, man. Then I found out, no, we've been voting for righteous people. They just been cheating us through these various different methods. I want to say this and then I leave. Last week, them brothers came forward and they gave all that data that something is wrong. And I seen it. I watched it. I watched the two-cam Tuesday. Now here it is. We come right back this Tuesday. And we coincides with what they're saying. They saying these registrations is spiking. Something wrong. We got way more registered voters than people over 18. And they say that ain't proof of the cheating. The proof of the cheating is when we go and say, okay, we got more registered voters than people over 18. So let's see why we got more registered voters than people over 18. We know that some of them votes is fraud. Let's find the fraud. And we found the fraud. We found why it's more registered voters than people over 18, because you got fraudulent votes in there, and it's being done by our Secretary of State and our city clerk. I want to say this. It was a question asked last week. Do they feel that the 2020 election was stolen? 100% the 2020 election was stolen. Detroit went crazy. My stepdaughter, I don't say this, my stepdaughter moved from with me and my ex-wife to Texas. Her name is Jayla Capri Jackson. She moved from Texas. Don't know nothing about no registered voter. Don't know nothing about absentee vote. She showed up on that 2020 list, and she's in Texas. And we take that list right now, the list I got right now, me and Pastor Sewell got, and we take that list and just do a analysis on that list of everybody on that list that right now currently that they say voted, they got an out-of-state license. That's your list. That's how easy it is to catch them doing this. All you got to do is see all the people on this list that got out-of-state license right now, why they saying they voted, and then go to them and say, how is you voting and you registered to vote in another jurisdiction? Them people gonna tell you, I ain't vote. I don't know nothing about what's going on down there in Detroit and in Michigan. So if y'all, thank y'all again. If y'all got any questions, please feel free to ask.
Thank you, Mr. Jackson and Pastor Sewell, for being here and providing this very important work that you have done in all of your investigations, and we're grateful for that. I have got a question. So all of these people that have cast ballots in their name, the ones that you have spoke to, you can confirm they have not voted.
They have not voted.
So this is a real problem. Not only are they on the voter rolls as registered, but they are fraudulent, their vote is being fraudulently cast.
Absolutely. And we fraudulently being registered too. See, we ain't even registering the vote. See, a lot of times it's two issues going on. So a lot of times they'll say, we got a problem with not clearing the voter rolls. And I had to deal with this in court. The Attorney General and the city of Detroit tried to disingenuously argue the case as if I had a problem with how they clearing the voter rolls. I had to state to the court, I have no problem with the process of removing legitimate voters off the roll. Our problem is total contrast to that. They are putting us on the rolls after we move it. That's total fraud. One of them can be derelict of duty, and we giving them a little bit saying it's a derelict of duty keeping people on the voter rolls for 20 years. But the problem is we can't explain or we can't go into their intent why they not removing people out the voter roll. And that's why we can't win in court. But we can go on their intent with you taking people who moved away that you know ain't registered to vote and you putting them on the voter roll. That's fraud and that's a crime. It's a 4-year, we arguing this. They told me I ain't got standing. They ain't say that they didn't do this to us. That's not what they saying in court. They not saying you don't know what you're talking about, Mr. Jackson. We not doing this. That's not what the Attorney General is saying. That's not what this. So anybody who got doubt, that's not what they're saying. Attorney General is not saying this is not true. They saying, who is you to sue? Who are you? How was you affected different than the other people in Detroit? That's what they're saying in order to maintain a lawsuit. I'm saying to them is that we are a different class of people. We identified the class of people. Low, no voter turnout, transitioning people, or unstable housing, moving constantly around, and then move out, and then that's a whole different class of people that they're targeting to do this in this nefarious plot. So
I want to leave a few moments of time for questions on the committee. So, Rep. Colazar.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I have a couple questions with your permission.
Yes.
First question is, you had mentioned that you knew that a lot of these alleged illegal votes were going to Democratic candidates, saying they voted straight ticket Democratic Party. Sir, voting is secret ballot, so how could you possibly know that?
I know that based on who won. A cheated vote won't go to a loser. If you cheated a vote and a person lost, it don't make logical sense that if the Democrat won, that's who got the cheated vote. Because if you got a Democrat and a Republican running for office, running for a seat, and we catch cheating in that election, how do we know who got the vote? The one who won, the Democrat. That's how I know.
Okay, which election are you referring to?
Which election?
Well, you said
there's a few of them. It was
the
the
last one, the
2022
Democrat didn't win at
election,
the presidential level.
the 2024 election. Which one are you asking me
I'm
about?
trying to figure out which one you're telling me is, I guess, my question.
I told you about the 2021. I told you about the 2020 election it was fraudulent votes. 2021 election that was fraudulent votes. 22 election and 24. I'm asking you which one are you talking? Okay, so I'm gonna deal with the 2020.
Okay.
2020. This is how I know that President Biden got Kennedy vote and all the people who vote because President Biden won Detroit. That's how I know. Here it is. He got 240,000 votes and President Trump got 12,000 votes. Now, logically, he the loser and he got the fraudulent vote. That's how I can determine who got the vote based on the winner.
Okay, well, I guess that leads me to my next question. You had mentioned that 246,000 people voted and there's only 195,000 registered, correct?
No, that's not what I said.
That's what you said. You said there was 195,000 eligible votes, but 246,000
I said they
voted.
gave us I said they gave us a list. I said he obtained the list of people who voted in that election. And they gave us 195,000 people who had voted. But they listed 241,000. Detroit got over 500,000 registered voters, so I would never say anything about 200 being the registered voter list. 200 is the people who they alleged that voted, and they gave us 195,000, shorted us close to 50,000 voters.
Okay, I appreciate the clarification. My last question would be, in October, the U.S. District, the Eastern District Court, U.S. Court, dismissed your case based on no discernible evidence for your claims. So my question would be, why should the committee accept it if a court hasn't accepted it yet?
The city, first off, that's not what they dismissed the case for. They just dismissed the case for standing. I just explained it. They ain't never said nothing about what you said. That ain't nowhere in none of the document. They dismissed that case for standing the same way they dismissed Trump case for standing. And standing don't deals with evidence. Standing deals with the right, who got a right to bring the lawsuit forward. Standing is a way that they can get out of actually addressing the evidence in the case. So they dismissed the case based on standing. They said I was unable to show how my vote being diluted was different than all these other people before me. That's why they dismissed the case.
Thank you.
So, yeah.
Next question, we've got Representative Fox.
Well, I'm here to proclaim that righteousness exalts a nation, a state, a city,
Yes, sir.
and we are looking for righteousness. Jesus said, "You shall know the truth, and the truth shall set you free."
Yes, sir.
So, my question is, have we found the trap that was set? And I'm talking about the book of Psalms, the pit that was dug, that they're going to fall into themselves. And I'd love to hear your response to that.
We got it right here. If with the method that we got to discern cheating, it's a for sure method. It don't got nothing to do with a person being computer savvy. It's just straight up old detective work. Getting that list, identifying that list. See, I know how to comb that list and look at all them areas in our community. And when I see stuff, it automatically drive me to know that it's something suspicious there. When I see a person voting absentee that was born in 2005 in Detroit, it's an automatic suspicion, especially when his name Jaquan, for real. So, and they got a whole bunch of them on that list.
Next, we've got Representative Wooden.
Thank you, Chair. And I also have just a small handful of questions, if you'll permit me.
Yes.
Thank you. So my first question is just a quick confirmation from your earlier testimony. During that testimony, you urged the listeners and those in the committee room to contribute to the 180 Church to further examine this. Just to confirm, you were not soliciting donations for political activities to run through the church, correct?
Absolutely not.
I appreciate you
I
confirming that.
wasn't soliciting anything. I was saying I hope that this would be enough to move forward because we showing proof. I'm saying if it's anything need to be cleared, we can discover it to clear it up, but absolutely not.
I appreciate the confirmation. Second, regardless of how the case was dismissed, I'm at least looking at the Secretary of State's motion to dismiss. I hadn't had a chance to read through both your full testimony and this, given this was dropped on our desks this morning, and I'm just pulling this to you today. But I'm seeing at least two instances, actually three, where they're confirming that the person who filed the absentee ballot application either did so in person, as the case of John F. Kennedy III, and in doing so, he would have either had to have had his signature verified through the second QVF signature validation, or he would have had to produce his photo ID. And then on top of that, the same with Steely Smith, even though they were marked as I'm forgetting the name, the label. The verify status when they surrendered their driver's license, they were then changed to active status when they, again, signed the application, which the signature was, again, verified. And so I guess my question is, when signatures are verified, how can we confirm that the person was legitimately voting, or that their affidavit that they've signed just a few weeks ago is the correct
Well, one
statement?
thing we do know, we know that we had a problem with them telling them to just verify signatures. So all the signature verification is clearly not proof. That's a problem within itself, because let me share with you this. When you go to the Secretary of State, they require you to show your Social Security when you pretty much change all these documents in order to get your license. But they saying a signed absentee ballot application trump all that you got to show when you go into a Secretary of State to do it, to get a license. Everything you got to show, 5 pieces of ID that they require you to show to get your license. They on that document you reading, they saying one signed affidavit trump that. Another thing too, we got affidavits from people debunking that. Kennedy never went to. They said in there Kennedy came and he voted absentee in person. He voted in person absentee. That's what that say. That document. He said he
Which
came.
people do. I've done myself. I've gone to
Yeah,
the city clerk's
but Kenny-
office in Grand
Kenny gon-
Rapids and
Kennedy
filled it out.
gonna say he didn't vote. So let me say this: who you reading from is you reading from the defendant. That's who's writing that. So quite naturally, her word, she ain't gonna say that happened for sure. Kennedy is saying he didn't vote, and he got an affidavit saying he didn't vote. Kennedy history show prior to 2020, he did not never vote and never been registered to vote. Kennedy history also show he changed his license from Detroit to Roseville in 2018. So when you look at the dynamics of the evidence, it's more plausible Kennedy didn't vote than what they saying Kennedy did. And his affidavit is saying it. So we're going to just keep saying people come forward with affidavits saying they ain't voting, they just wasting their time. And we're going to say, oh, they saying you voted, and people just wasting their time. And then we showing we was out of state at the same time that this happened. What about my incident? When I was out of state, what about my incident when they registered me back here? Do you got something to say about that?
Again, look, your testimony was dropped on my desk
I know.
at
I'm
9
just saying, 'cause
a.m.
If you could ask me about
I
my
just started
incident,
reading
I think
this.
We should have a good dialogue because it's directly me. They did this to me. They registered me fraudulently, so I can just say remove everybody else. How did I become registered fraudulently when I moved away?
Could it have been that you were already on the voter rolls, and under the national law, when you surrender your license, you are remained on a challenge status or a verify status, and then if you
That
don't
don't
vote
make-
in 2 subsequent elections, you're removed.
You can't go to, that don't make sense. You can't go to a Secretary of State in another state, change your license over, and then Michigan turn around and register you there.
No,
That's
but
what I'm
could you
saying
have
happened to me.
been registered to vote prior to through a driver's license transaction before you're moving
That
to Ohio?
address. Never at that address. When I sued them, I ain't registered. The whole point of the matter is the day that they saying I registered to vote, I didn't register to vote. Are you saying that a person can be registered to vote without them being present?
No, I'm merely suggesting that there are.
You did-
I am merely suggesting here that through the motion to dismiss, they are citing instances where not their signature on their affidavit, but their signature on their absent voter application was verified with the signature they do have on file with the QVF. That is the quality check to ensure someone does in fact vote absentee accurately. And they have 2 incidences that I'm seeing here through my brief review of it that those were verified. And so I'm merely asking the question, when we have a previous record showing that their signature was verified through the QVF when they did sign an absent voter application versus an affidavit signed 5 years later, which one should I be weighing more?
You should believe the person who's saying, that's a person who's caught saying that. This is a person who was victimized saying they didn't do that. So quite naturally, that's like the bank robber saying, I ain't robbed the bank, and you got all the evidence there. Quite naturally, bank robber gonna say he ain't robbed the bank. You listening to the bank robber. I'm talking about the person who was victimized with an affidavit saying I ain't vote there. So who are we gonna believe? The person who caught hand in a snare saying he did this? Of course the Secretary of State gonna say that they did that because they don't want to say that they doing this unlawfully to people. But why would people be coming forward who moved away, signing affidavits saying they voted? And then ask yourself this. That was a presidential election. Kennedy didn't have to move to Roseville to vote for the president in Detroit. He could have voted for the president in Roseville. He didn't have to do that in Detroit. And you know what they saying right now? They saying Kennedy still is temporarily away from Roseville since 2018. That's what they saying about him right now. He's still away from Roseville. Bring Kennedy forward and let Kennedy tell you, I didn't vote. I never voted in my life. 2020, I was 48 years old. I had never ever been registered to vote in my life. So,
I've got one final question. I'm curious if you have spoke to Secretary Benson about any of this and provided this information to her office.
yes, I met with one of the chief investigators in the Austin building probably earlier this. We sat down for 2 hours, and it's really once this evidence is presented, you know, they can't come back and tell us that we actually did this. They just stop responding. I calls Attorney General, tell her that Kennedy want to talk to her. He didn't vote for her, and he come talk to him at least. Just come talk to him. He'll tell you, hey, I ain't vote for none of y'all. I don't know y'all. Come, they don't want to talk to him. They don't want to do nothing no more. They really literally running and hiding now.
Well, I want to thank you, Mr. Jackson and Pastor Lorenzo, for your time today and coming forth with your findings. And I think it's safe to say there's a work that needs to be done in our qualified voter rolls and getting those cleaned up. With the last several weeks that we've had with testimony before this committee, that's pretty apparent. But I also think that we can agree that we all want to have free and fair and secure elections. So it is extremely important that we do this work of looking into and doing what we can as a committee to ensure that our qualified voter files are clean and accurate. That is a goal that I have within this committee. And thank you very much for your time once again and for the work that you are doing. So there being no further business before the committee will stand adjourned.